Hello, everybody. My name is Randy Gill, and I'm the president and CEO of Their Opportunity. We're a national children's sports charity that supports underserviced youth with the opportunity to participate in sport and recreation and give back to their communities. And welcome to Opportunity Talks. I have a special guest with me today. He was a professional basketball player for a long time. He was a member of the Canadiens national basketball team. He's the pride of Mississauga, Ontario, and he played for Canada at the 2000 Summer Olympics, as well as the 1998 and 2002 FIBA World Championships. My guest finished his professional playing career in 2002, and he currently is a basketball analyst for Sportsnet and NBA TV Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Sherman Hamilton. How you doing, my man?
I'm very, very well, Randy. Good to be on. Thanks for having me. And I have to make one correction. If I allow Mississauga to be where I'm from, the people from Malton, where I grew up, will kill me.
Yeah,
I have to say, it's from Malton, not Mississauga.
Not Mississauga. That's good. That's good. I love it. That's a good correction because we don't want to start off on the wrong feet.
No.
Let's get that right. How are you doing, man? How are you staying active and healthy these days? What are you doing to kind of keep the mind and the body healthy to stay fit and stay active?
Yeah, it's a difficult time for a lot of people in terms of just kind of keeping things between their ears just stable at times. And I find that for me personally, exercising is big for me. I work out pretty much every day, there's so many things on the internet and YouTube that you can find that are workouts that you can do, without any weights, just using whatever stuff you have in your house just to stay in shape. So just doing that, I find really helps me just kind of keep moving, keeps my mind active, makes me feel like I'm doing something. And, the other thing is during this time, we have the opportunity to not only try to figure out what we need to do when we're out of this, but figure out who we want to be and kind of make ourselves better throughout this time. And it's a lot of quiet time. It can involve a lot of introspection, but it's a real opportunity to make sure that we can come out of this on the other side, maybe seeing things a bit differently and maybe operating a bit differently when everything gets as close to as what we're used to. And that might be a benefit for all of us.
Yeah. Man, I love that. And that's a good encouragement to those that are watching. What are you finding yourself dreaming about these days too? Allowing yourself to dream and take time for yourself to be active in your body, but in your mind, so that when you come out of this, you're the best version of yourself, ready to go. Our team is always talking about being in the starter's block in a race during this time, but not being on the mark position, but in the set position, ready to go. Because we're going to be needed more than ever. You're going to be needed more than ever once all of this kind of, moves to the next phase. And we want to be ready for that. And actually, I wanted to know a little bit about how things have changed for you and your team currently with no basketball on TV. What are you guys doing as a team to kind of, get yourself through this, creating content? What's going on for you guys?
Well, obviously it's different for everybody. And in the broadcasting world, as we've seen, a lot of it has moved online in terms of things that we're doing like Zoom calls and, IG lives and all the other various platforms that are out there for broadcasters or individuals who want to just promote stuff or continue to keep their public appearances up. I haven't really gone that route. I've not started my own Instagram live. I've not done the Zoom calls unless asked to do it. I found this as an opportunity to kind of step away from the camera and the lights and not necessarily be out there promoting myself and just trying to figure some things out behind the scenes. You made an interesting point. I mean, coming out of this with a lot of hope and a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you got to get to the core of it and figure out what wasn't working during this time. And that will help you get to that point where you're talking about, where you come out of this, you're stronger, you're more positive, you're ready for anything that life throws at you. And it's not just about the people we're used to seeing on TV and in the media. This is going to be everybody's job for the rest of our lives to make sure that we do things that are going to influence people properly in a positive way. So, I mean, for basketball, obviously, guys are doing what they do on their own, trying to stay in shape, and nothing can really simulate game basketball. But as this world has been impacted by this pandemic, everybody has had to adjust and kind of reframe their way of thinking and approaching things and understanding there's only so much you can do right now.
Yeah.
And you can't get down on yourself when you can't get things done, because some things just aren't achievable now. But when we come out of this, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think this as an athlete is mindset is everything too. Like, it's important to be able to go through these things and kind of train your mind. I've been talking a lot lately to people about that positive psychology, and as an athlete, you are always building that mindset, so maybe talk to some of the viewers about mindset training and things that you're doing to kind of create that positive vibe and those mindset about what you're doing for your job, or what kids maybe can be doing in their training for athletics. Like, mindset, talk about mindset for a minute.
Oh, it's interesting. I did get my degree in psychology, so this is a very, very interesting topic for me. I think what people might not understand is that our brains are designed to troubleshoot. Our brains are made to figure things out. You ever have that nagging feeling in your head trying to figure something out? It's because that's how our brains are wired.
Right.
They're problem solvers. And what happens is we get put in situations, and sometimes we're not able to get out of it and figure things out. But a lot of times we are, because our brains are constantly working and trying to solve problems. And I think when you talk about the mindset, forget about being an athlete, the mindset of a human during this pandemic should be continue to improve yourself and continue to work on yourself, so that when this pandemic is better and we're back functioning in a more quote unquote normal way, that we've kind of set ourselves up with tools that we're going to be able to utilize out there. And I guarantee that they'll be different than they were before the pandemic, and they should be different.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things we were doing probably weren't the best ways of dealing with things. And it's more of the interpersonal skills that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I think that from a mindset perspective, I've always been built in attack mode. I've always been, there's a problem, figure it out.
Yes.
Grind it out, try to figure it out. That was my mentality, whether it was athletics or life. And some of us are in situations where you have to grind it out when you're young. You don't have the opportunity of relying on other people. You just got to figure it out. I think that mindset translates in any area of your life.
Agree.
And if you have the ability to troubleshoot, to think critically, to be positive, to understand and set goals and targets that you want to achieve, you always have an opportunity, if not to get out of it, to make the situation better. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make situations better for ourselves, for the people in our lives that we love, and other people in general, the human race. When we can make people better and help them, that's got to be the mindset.
I love it. I love it, especially in these days right now. That's the vibes that Opportunity Talks is projecting. There's always opportunity to do good and to be the change you want to see in your world. Do it today. Do it today.
And that's not always the easiest thing to do, Randy. Sorry to interrupt you, but as you know, there's a lot of forces and different ideologies and different mindsets that you're interacting with on a daily basis. And that's not a bad thing. It's understanding. It's being able to give people the opportunity to explain their stance, to talk to them, to have communication that goes back and forth. And then it becomes a learning environment, which is ideal, where I can learn about you, you can learn about me, and we can gain mutual respect. We don't have to agree, but we can work together even though we might not agree on everything. And that, to me, has to be the goal moving forward. Agreed.
I love it. That's good advice. And we want to talk about those things. And as we do that, we're joining the conversation together and making our community a better place, making our country a better place. And we want to leave it better than we found it. And that's why we're having these types of conversations and projecting them, so that the next generation is able to pick up the torch and the baton that you and I pass on. And so let's rewind back to when you were a kid. And you don't have to go back too far, but let's talk about when you're a young man, and maybe some of the influences that you had in your life, and how maybe sport played such a big role in your development as a person, as a character, and how you kind of see that playing out now. Maybe you can refer to some of your coaches or mentorship, but I know that that's an important thing for you, as mentoring, and as you talk about that, also talk about why basketball, why the path of basketball.
Well, it's pretty simple for me. As a kid, I just loved to play. I just loved anything that was happening on my block. I wanted to play. Anything to be outside, anything to not be in the house and be running around and with my friends, I would do it. So sports or athletics has been a part of me since I can remember, whether it's playing soccer in the field with my friends, playing baseball, football, playing anything, racing each other, playing tag. I just loved to compete and play with my friends. So by the time basketball came into my life, which was when I was about 11 years old, which in today's time, it's pretty late. I mean, kids are introduced to basketball at 3, 4, 5, and they're in programs and they're working on their skills. Well, I didn't get to the game till I was 11 years old in grade 6. And I just kind of fell in love with it. It was a game that came fairly easy to me. I found that the actual fundamentals of the game, now this is me looking back and saying this now, but the fundamentals of the game came pretty naturally to me. I didn't have a busted jump shot. I could dribble the basketball pretty proficiently with both hands when I first picked it up. So those kind of elements were kind of already in me before I picked the game up. So that kind of gave me a jump, and a lot of people saw the potential. But the thing about basketball was all of my friends played basketball. And I wanted to hang around with my friends, and we wanted to play basketball all the time. So this love for the game just grew and grew and grew to the point where all we did, with our free time was play basketball. Now, when I was in high school, I played all kinds of sports. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played volleyball, I played table tennis, I played badminton, I did track and field. I did almost every sport that I could do, just because I loved playing. But basketball became that one sport that with my free time, that's all that me and my friend did. We just played basketball all the time. And I just fell in love with the game.
Yeah, and those relationships that you develop even when you're young can stay with you for a lifetime. And giving kids opportunity these days is really key. And a third of all Canadian children can't afford to participate in sport and can't be involved. And there's certain pockets of our country where that number is even way higher, right? So what we're talking about is allowing ourselves to be an influence in our society, to give kids opportunity, and an opportunity that was given to you, we're passing it on. You're passing it on, and I love that you're passing it on in the game, but also just in life in general. And you said something that was really important too. And of course, whenever I hear the word opportunity, my eyes light up. And basketball gave you an opportunity, and I want to talk a little bit about some of those open doors that it gave you. Tell us a little bit about the journey leading up to the Olympics. Like, what happened for you prior to that, schooling and university, and leading up to representing Canada. I want to talk about representing Canada and the Olympics as well, but what were some of those markers along the way that you knew you were on the right path or the right journey?
Well, it's interesting that you talk about opportunity, because my journey to the Olympics started with an opportunity that was given to me when I was 15, just starting high school. I had been recognized as one of the better players in Ontario. A letter comes to the school and says, "Hey, you've been recognized. We're having another identification camp. It costs $100 if you get through the camps and you make this Ontario team," and all that stuff. The gym teacher, who was a geography teacher as well, who I never was taught by, but he was one of the teachers that a lot of us kids just gravitated towards. He was a father figure. We all have one of those teachers that in high school grabs us and kind of holds us and keeps us in place. Yeah. And he was that guy for a lot of us. And he gave me the letter and said, "This is great. Take it home, tell your parents, get it all set up." Well, my parents, we weren't going to be able to afford $100 for a camp. It just wasn't in the budget. So as a lot of kids couldn't afford. And I told him that. He came and asked me, "Hey, did you get it all set up?" I said, I was kind of embarrassed. I said, no, I didn't. He said, why not? And I told him why. And he took out his checkbook and wrote a check for $100 on the spot in his office.
Wow.
And who knows? I mean, we're talking about years later, me being in the Olympics, but if that check is not written, who knows if I ever get the opportunity to present myself to people to have a chance playing the Olympics. So it's a very, very fine line. And when opportunity comes, you don't understand how big and how enormous it can be in your life, but you got to appreciate it when it comes. And I was able to parlay that into a chance playing the Olympics. But his name is Mr. Jonathan Graham, and I call him the best teacher I never had. He's never taught me a class in high school, but he taught me the most about life out of any teacher that I dealt with. So I have a lot of love and respect for him, and I still talk to him this day, appreciate him. And I'm not the only person he's helped. He's helped hundreds of kids and given them opportunities. I was just one of those hundreds that I can get a chance to speak about him in a way that really respects the man that he is and he was during that time. A few other names for me. I mean, a man named Nick Barbieri, who kind of when my dad died when I was in high school, and he kind of came into the picture and he just opened his family up to me and just said, hey, whatever you need, we're here. My whole family is here. Would invite me to his house. We'd have dinners, all these kind of things. And those kind of things are important when you think about a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who can kind of go off the rails based on losing his father. Another man was Angelo Provenzano. He was great to me, helped me continue in that junior national team program. He was a coach, and this is another great man in my life. I was taking summer school, and I was going to a camp in Waterloo, and you had to stay overnight. And I couldn't stay overnight because I had to do summer school. So he would, after camp, drive me back home from Waterloo to Malton every night after camp and come and pick me up in the morning and bring me to camp. So the powers that be at the camp would never know I wasn't there.
Wow.
And they found out, and he got kicked out of the camp because he said, don't do anything to Sherman. He didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who was making sure he got in.
Wow.
And he got kicked out of the camp, and he got kicked out of the Ontario program for that.
Crazy.
But he did it because he saw an opportunity for me, and he wanted to make sure that I had the best chance to be successful. Wow. Another man that opened up his house and his family to me. And till this day, we still talk. And he actually sent me, I'll get to this later on, but I went to March Madness. I played in a tournament one year, and they gave us a watch. And when I got it, I gave it to him. I just said, look, thank you for everything you've done. And this is just a small token, but what you did means the world to me. And just last week, he mailed me that watch.
Come on.
He did. He still had it. Wow. And this is like 25 years ago. He mailed me this watch, and he said, I can't keep it. You need to keep it and give it to your daughters. And I said, I can. This is yours. It's yours for a reason. So he will get that watch back. But just to kind of an idea of some of the people that stepped into my life at a time where I desperately needed not only leadership, but I needed the father figure in my life. I needed men who would stand up and take pieces of that responsibility, not because I asked, because they were great men and they wanted to do that for me. It gets me emotional when I talk about it, but it's such a special. These men are really special men in my life.
That's amazing. It really goes to show it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And for those who are watching, continue to mentor, continue to give people opportunities, sacrifice, because that's the whole cycle of generosity. That's what it's all about. That's what we're here to do and here to be. Right now we're, experiencing these really crazy times, and you really feel not the lack of human connection and how important it is. And soon as that gun goes off for us to get out of the blocks, reconnect, be with people, build community. Sorry, I'm going off the rails here.
That's fine. That's fine.
This is what makes us passionate. It's about giving kids opportunity and connecting communities to be the best versions of ourselves and raise the next generation together.
Let's take this off the rails a bit, Randy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I just find that social media has kind of bastardized what we consider to be friendships, what we consider to be real human to human interaction.
Right.
It's taken away, as you said, the physical contact and replaced it with messages and likes and follows and all of these things that inflate the ego, and they're a lot about look at me type of things, where we lose that interpersonal connection. And through this whole pandemic, what we've seen is the emphasis on social media and staying in contact with people.
Yeah.
I'm with you. On the other side of this, I want to hope that social media won't play as much of a role when it comes to contacting and communicating with people. Yeah. I'd like to think that this pandemic taught us that it's more important to touch people, to physically be around them, have those conversations, instead of messaging and liking stuff and commenting on posts. I think there's just a different animal now that has to be addressed, and understanding that social media has its benefits, but it can't take us away from those face-to-face interactions.
I love it. I love it. When you get a chance to give somebody a hug, do it. You know, shake a hand, give a hug. I'm an emotional guy, you know that. I want to hug you. You know, I want to spend time close to you. So as soon as we can do that, we're going to hug, we're going to embrace, okay, so I was going to talk about the Olympics and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to skip it. All right. I'm going to go a little bit into relationship, because that's what we're talking about. So when you look back at the moments that you spent with these guys running through the Olympics and putting Canadian basketball on the map, and we all thank you for that, by the way. You guys really sacrificed to do that for all the next generation, and you carried that flag with pride, and you wore that jersey with pride, knowing that the next generation will reap the benefit. So, pass that on to the rest of your teammates. But when we look back at that, who are some of those relationships that were special to you? Who do you still stay in touch with, for example, on the national team these days?
Well, with our national team, we're connected for life. I mean, no matter how much we talk to each other or don't, when we see each other, we understand that we accomplished something that was pretty special for our group. And there's a lot of respect and love for what we accomplished together, because as you said, it didn't just happen one year. It was years of work that got that group to the Olympics. And we all understand the work that it took. And we were in a lot of battles before we ever showed up at the Olympics together in countries that nobody heard of and nobody was watching because nobody cared. So we know what it took to get there. Now everybody's moving around, and you talk to guys every now and then. It's not the constant interaction, but what I really appreciate about it is it doesn't really matter, how long of a stretch we go without communicating. When we see each other, there's that understanding and that connection and that bond that will never be broken, no matter what happens in our lives, because we accomplished something. We did it together, and there's a lot of love between the group, coaching staff, training staff, the players, regarding what we're able to accomplish. So I wouldn't say we communicate often in terms of, hey, how you doing and all that, but when we do, there's a lot of love being shared between the group.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. It's not about winning championships and getting the trophies, and for the kids that are watching with their families, it's about the other intangibles, that you don't see at the moment, all of those relationships, all the skills that you learned, the camaraderie, the teamwork, hard work ethic, social
sacrifice.
Inclusion, sacrifice, all that is so important. And so this was an awesome conversation. I'm going to kind of take it a little bit. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it now, because we've covered so much. I love it. But just a side note, favorite basketball moment, and then we'll switch gears to what you're doing now. Favorite basketball moment of all time for you as a player?
Well, there's a few, actually. March Madness was a big thing at that time in my life, being able to compete in the tournament. You watched it for years as a young person. Then all of a sudden, you're one of the 64 teams. One of the 64 teams in the tournament, you get a chance to play.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. Another moment was in 1999 when we qualified for the Olympics. Like, nobody watched or paid attention to us until that final game against Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
In Puerto Rico, with 12,000 fans in the arena, and we had to qualify. We had to beat the home team for the only spot to get to the Olympics.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty special moment, being in Puerto Rico when that buzzer went off and celebrating, and that arena just being shocked and quiet. Silence was beautiful at that point. And it was just a major accomplishment. And then the opening ceremonies at the Olympics, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know, you see that all the time, you know, people walking out in their country's colors and their country's uniforms. And it was kind of special because I had one of those old school camcorders and I had it up and I was basically showing it around to try and record the whole event. And my mother got to see me. She actually saw me in the crowd on TV.
Yeah.
And, you know, from where we come from, nobody expected someone like me to do that. It wasn't in the cards.
Yeah.
And that gave my mother a real opportunity to say, that's my son.
It's my boy.
This is what he was able to do. Yeah. So that was pretty special. And I know none of my stories have to do with actual on-court basketball plays, but it's around basketball, and it's kind of the accomplishments that kind of made you realize that hard work does pay off. Sacrifice does pay off. Discipline pays off. All these elements of trying to achieve goals, they actually work. And I'm proof of that with some of the accomplishments that I've had in my life.
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, let's switch to life after basketball.
Yeah.
And kind of what you're doing now. So professional basketball ends, international basketball ends, and then you find yourself doing what? Tell the viewers, you know, what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was playing professionally overseas for a few years, and I ended up breaking my ankle in Toronto playing in a U of T summer league. Now, I had at the time a deal in place to go to Argentina, back to Argentina to play. I broke my ankle 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to Argentina. I didn't know it was broken. I thought it was a severe sprain.
Yeah.
So I was trying to rehab it and trying to get the swelling out and all that stuff, thinking that, you know, I'll get there, say that I'm a bit banged up, and then it'll get better and I'll be able to just play the season. Well, it never came back. My ankle never came back. I ended up having surgery. This happened in August of 2003. I had the surgery in February of 2004. And that ultimately may be an end of my basketball career playing wise.
Yeah.
But prior to that November, when the Raptors started up, a friend of mine just said, hey, come down to the game. They might want to interview you. Go to the game. I get on a show. They interview me. And the producer says, have you thought about working in TV? And I said, no, you know, I'm trying to rehab. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back to playing basketball.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm going to finish playing basketball. And he's like, just come by the studio, just talk to some people. So I'd come by the studio, I'd hang out. I'd go there and watch, you know, how pre-games were done, how post-games were done. And in between, we'd all watch the game and we'd just kind of talk about basketball while we're watching the game. This is why you have to be very aware and understand that your opportunity comes when you least expect it.
Yeah, that's good.
Through all of that time where I'm going in there and I'm watching these games and I'm watching these pregame shows and the producers talking, we're all having basketball conversation. This ended up being my interview.
Right.
And after a few games, the producer said, hey, did you bring a suit today? And I was like, no. He's like, next time, bring a suit. And he put me on air the very next game that they had.
Wow.
And now 18 seasons later, I'm still doing it. So unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that this was him figuring out if I could fit into what they were doing. And because I guess the way I carried myself, the way I spoke about the game, my ability to communicate, the knowledge that you garner over the years of playing the sport at a high enough level, it was impressive enough for him to say, not, hey, do you want to work here? Did you bring a suit?
Did you?
Because you're going to work here. So get used to it.
That's right.
And it's pretty, and it wasn't easy, Randy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. I mean, I had to start at the bottom, and I say it's just like the jump shot. The more hours I put in the gym on the jump shot and my handle was, the better I got.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it's the
right.
same thing with broadcasting. I had to put the work in, and fortunately for me, it's lasted this long. But
We're
another
really proud of you,
opportunity.
man. You
Thank
you grind it out, and you know, you hate to hear someone say you've made it, because you're always aspiring to a better version
Absolutely.
of yourself. But we're really proud of you, because you know, you put yourself in the right place at the right time, and we're aware that I need to be ready, and I'm going to work hard to grind through this. And I think that's part of your message to those that are watching and the young athletes. Put yourself in the right positions, and when the opportunities come, be ready. Be ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's nothing that beats self-discipline.
That's right. I got a couple last questions, and then I'm going to let you go. Because I know you well enough, I know that this, you know, phrase is important to you, and that is giving back to my community. So why is that? You know, you talk about community a lot. You talk about giving back a lot. Why give back? You don't need to. Like, why do you support groups like Their Opportunity, or why do you give back for coaching and mentoring? Why is that all important to you?
Well, I think, first of all, when you have a life journey that didn't come from privilege, you understand what it means to be given an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It means that people didn't have to do that. They did it for a reason, and it was because they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to understand the fundamentals behind giving back, in terms of, you might see somebody that has an opportunity to be special, but they may not want to do that. They may not want to be special.
Right.
If you can help them, you help them. If you can't, you can't. But understanding that giving back has to be an altruistic, personal goal, and come from a personal space, a belief system that says, this is what I should do as a human being. Now, it comes around in different forms. As you know, you have a great organization that we've worked together and been able to do some things, but you do a great job with your team continuing to provide opportunities for youth. But I find that giving back comes in a lot of forms. Sometimes it's a simple conversation with somebody who needed it at that time. They needed to hear the words or your experience that helps them get to a next level in their situation. Or the idea of, it can be financial, it can be resource-wise. There's so many ways to fill that void. So giving back is something that has to happen from the heart, and it has to happen with purpose. And I think that we can't knock anybody for the way they give back, and just understand that it might not look like the way you do it, but that doesn't mean it's not the right way or it's not helping somebody. And we have to collectively understand that giving back should be a goal for everybody, not just people like you and me who have a platform, but everybody has the opportunity to give back in some way, shape, or form. And don't think it's too small, because every little bit helps.
Right on, man. Right on. So my last final question is a deep one as well, but how do you, Sherm, want to be remembered as the man? Like, what legacy, what impact do you want to leave behind?
Wow, that's a big question. You know, I try to write these little quips or quotes that, you know, you want to feel that they come from yourself. You're not remembering it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And one of the things I say is, every day is an opportunity to make your obituary better.
Yeah.
Every day that we're alive, we have the opportunity to make what people say and write about us that much better. And to me, at the end of the day, when I'm gone and I'm off this planet, the only thing I'd want people to think is that I tried to make this place better. I tried to help people. I tried, and I gave back, and people understood that I might not have got it right all the time, but I definitely had the right purpose, and my heart was in the right place in terms of why I was doing what I was doing. And as a human being, be respected. I'm not here to try and say I want to be held up on a pedestal. That doesn't matter to me. Right. I just want to know the people that I actually came in contact with or impacted appreciated it and understood that where I came from was a pure and positive place as much as I could.
Right on. Such good words. And thank you to everybody that's watching or will, watch this over the course of the next few weeks. please spread the good vibes, you know, the vibes that you feel from Sherman or from myself, pass those on. You know, I want to thank you, Sherman, again, for being with us and taking time out of your busy schedule. And even though we're in these times, we're all busy doing things. So I thank you for sacrificing your time to be with us. We
Oh,
thank you.
thanks for having me. No, I appreciate it. It's great. And you continue to do the great work you're doing. It's needed, especially in a time like now. So I applaud you and your team for everything you're doing to help our kids and our youth, because they're all our kids. They are our kids. Help them get through their situations and give them a positive outlook on life.
Right on. Everyone out there, play safe, stay safe, and turn every obstacle into an opportunity. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.